You are listening to Talking Home Renovations with a House Maven. Is it time to renovate your house, but you're worried that you don't really know what you're doing? This is an educational and entertaining podcast that will ease your fears. Or maybe you just love hearing about home renovations like I do. I am your host, Catherine McPhail. I am an architect. I practice in Eastern Massachusetts. On the show, I interview other architects, vendors, contractors, and homeowners to gather tips and stories about home renovations. You can learn about materials, systems, sustainable practices, what to expect, what to avoid, and how to make the most of the money that you'll spend on your renovation. This episode is a renovation story, and my guest today is Jake Flitton. He's an architect from East Aurora, New York. He and his family bought an old farmhouse that they have been restoring together, and this is their story. Hi, Jake.
Hi, Catherine.
Thanks for coming on. I can't wait to hear about your house. What is it that you call your house?
So we call our house the Aging Pines Homestead.
Aging Pine. Is the homestead aging or the pines aging?
A little bit of both, I think.
Okay.
And so, yeah, we've got it's not a huge piece of property, but it was historically, based on what I can tell. We only have about 2 acres that the house is on, just under 2 acres. But the driveway, the house sits back from the road quite a bit, and the driveway's lined with old pine trees, probably 150 feet high. They're pretty tall. Beautiful driveway, dirt driveway, but it's got concrete curbs, so it's meant to be a driveway.
Wow.
And the pine trees, they're pretty old. A couple of them we've had taken down just due to age. But at the same time, that's where the name comes from, is those aging pines pulling up the driveway. But the driveway, honestly, before we even walked into the house, the driveway won my wife over. She said, "Let's get the house," and
She didn't have to walk in.
She didn't even have to walk in. She saw the driveway and said, "Let's get it." And we did get it eventually, but
So
yeah.
what's the house itself like?
So I classify it as an old farmhouse, but I don't know if that's officially what it is. Looking at it now and understanding what it is, it's an old farmhouse that's been added on to about 3 or 4 times, is my guess.
Okay.
And some of the additions are pretty obvious from the outside. And so you can kind of gather what's been done to it. But as I've worked through some of the things doing remodeling, renovations, we've discovered more work's been done to it than initially we thought. So
how old is it?
That's the interesting part. So according to our tax records, the date of the house, it was built in 1930. However, when we first bought the house, I was working on the house one summer, had the doors open. My boys were outside playing. They were younger. And all of a sudden I heard an adult voice in the yard. And I was like, wait a minute, we're off in the trees. This is strange. What's going on?
Yeah.
So I walked out to see what was happening. And it was a lady, very polite, very nice. And she apologized right off the bat. She said, "I know I'm trespassing. I know I'm not supposed to be here, but my grandfather owned this house in the 20s. And I said, actually, she said, my grandfather owned the house when he was mayor of Buffalo.
Oh, wow.
And I said, wait. So you've got me intrigued all of a sudden. So he was mayor of Buffalo and he owned this house. And she said, yeah, he was mayor of Buffalo between 1920 and 1928, I think it was. And I said, well, that's strange because the tax records say it was built in 1930, but he owned it. She's like, yes, he owned it. My mother has pictures of the house in the 20s that I've seen. These pine trees lining the driveway were much smaller. And evidently it was his house, but it was his summer cottage. So he lived in Buffalo. We're about 30 minutes outside of Buffalo, south of Buffalo. And so it was his summer cottage that he owned in the 20s. And I gathered the information, his name and everything. Based on all the historical information I can find, her story checks out. So this guy was the mayor of Buffalo, owned the house, and during that time frame. So we know at least it's 1920. And then I have seen some historical maps and documents that date something on the property where the house sits back to as early as about 1900. So I don't really know how old the house is.
Okay. Was it a farm? Was it an actual farmhouse? Was there a farm along with it? I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, so there was a farm. From what I can tell, it was about 30 acres is my guess that was associated with the house
Mm.
originally.
Oh,
We've got a creek that kind of wraps around, and I think they've slowly over time parceled off pieces of property to as the farm either as the owners either got older or whatever, they slowly parceled things off down to what's left that we bought the house on.
do you know what kind of crops they originally grew? What people grow out
I
there?
I don't really know actually. So
Hmm.
looking at it, there's a number of Christmas tree farms around that it could be that, but there's a number of just hay fields and things. So it could be anything.
Okay.
Um,
So how long ago did you buy the house?
so we've only been in the house about I guess 6 years ago we bought it. 5 years we've been in it.
And was there a lot of work that needed to be done?
Yes, there is, and there was, and there still is. So we bought the house as is. We bought it through and this is some information that might be helpful for some people, is through a 203K loan, a rehab type loan.
Hmm.
Um, so the property is sold as is, understanding that we had a certain amount of finances to repair the house to bring it up to livable condition.
Okay.
Um,
So it wasn't very livable when you bought it?
no, it wasn't. And so we had to meet certain qualifications from the bank. So essentially we had our purchase price with a 203K loan. You have a purchase price, and then an inspector comes in and he outlines the minimum requirements that need to be met for the property to be safe and inhabitable. And then we use that checklist basically to go to contractors. They give us a price for that scope of work, and then our loan, our 203K loan, is based on the purchase price plus that rehab cost
Okay.
that we've generated with the contractors and the inspectors list. And then at that point, we have the bank requires, then the bank, processes everything, finances, and they give a certain time frame that things have to be completed in to meet the list. Um, and so once we meet the criteria on the list, I think it was a calendar year. I think 12 months we had to complete that work on that list. Then once we complete that list, anything we can do more work past there. It's just up to us, and there's no time frame. Um, but the bank has fully financed us at that point.
So the 203K loan, is that a government program? Or
I don't. I'm not sure. I think it might be, but it's similar to, they. I'm drawing a blank here on the other type, Fannie Mae. It's just another type of loan that you can do
Mm,
to finance a house.
okay. Well, that's interesting. So you got that and you had your list of what you had to do before you could move in, I would guess, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right. And so we had to. So even at that point, when we bought the house as is, we didn't know the state of. It's on a well system and a septic system, and we didn't know the state of those at this point when we purchased the house. So I guess before we even had the list from the inspector, we had to. I guess that's another aspect to our story, is that the house came on the market. We found it through our realtor, and she said, "Here's the house that I think you want." She'd been searching for us for a number of years, and she's like, "Let's put together an offer." We put together an offer, and as she submitted, she told me just hours before that another offer had gone in, and unfortunately at that time that other offer was accepted from the sellers, and so they accepted that offer. We were a little devastated,
Mm,
uh, and then 2 weeks later, or a week later, I got a call from my realtor that said, I know some information, inside information, so to speak. I've heard through some rumblings that they're not happy with the house because of the well and the septic system are completely unknown, and the buyer does not want to purchase. That's tens of thousands of dollars right there that were completely unknown if they needed to bring into the financing of the house or not.
right.
And so their argument with the seller was that the seller need to make some provisions to provide some money either in escrow to make that work. And eventually there was back and forth with that, and eventually that buyer backed out because that money was not included in the purchase. And
Mm.
so at that point, the sellers realized that they needed to make some allowances for it. So they put money in escrow for a new well and a new septic system, and then put it back on the market, so to speak. And at that point, my realtor called and said, "Okay, this is what's happening. It has fallen through. They've changed this thing." And I said, "Oh, that's great news. Can you put in an offer for us?" And being the wonderful realtor she is, she said, "I already put one in about an hour ago."
Oh,
And
that's
so,
good.
uh, a couple days later, come by and we were accepted. And it actually, the realtor told me later. She said, "I talked to the seller, spoke to them, and they mentioned that they wanted the house to not be sold to somebody who's looking to flip the home to
Mm.
a family that wants to stay there." And she said, "Well, this is the case. And as a byproduct, he is an architect and he's looking to do a lot of the work and bring it up to, standards that he would want." So I think my profession actually helped. Being an architect actually helped us get into the house.
Well, it helps us and it kind of hurts us, doesn't it?
It does.
But
It does.
yeah, but I think that people like the idea of their house being taken care of after they, whoever they sell it to. I think
Right.
I had a similar thing with mine. I wrote this big long letter about how I was going to take care of the house, and I think it just we were not the top bidders. I think we were like the fourth from the top. There were like six at the
Hmm.
same time, but we got it, and I think it was probably because of my letter.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
there's a little tip, just always write a letter about
Right.
how much you love the house and what your plans are for the house, and, I mean, they're kind of like, we've said this before on other episodes, but people's houses end up being really almost like a member of the family, so
Yes.
it's hard to
Yeah.
let them go, but
Right. Right. And that's the lady that I referenced before that stopped by the granddaughter of the mayor of Buffalo owned the house. When she walked around the property, you could tell it was a very I don't know if I dare say it, but a spiritual experience for her. She
mm,
was trying to connect. It was her connection to her grandfather, really, as she
yeah.
walked around the property, and she was very happy to see that it was going to another family, and that she was proud that her grandfather could kind of give that to us, so to speak.
Yeah. Was her family the ones who sold it to you?
She was not actually,
Hmm.
which seemed a little interesting. There's a little disconnection between her family and us, but
Huh.
that connection for her was still there.
Alright, so tell me about what improvements have you made?
So when we bought the house, we it was vacant because of the as is situation. The house sat vacant, and that's the part of the story is we don't know how long it was vacant.
Hmm.
Um, we've heard as little as a year. We've heard as much as 10 years.
10 years.
I
Wow.
don't really know. Um,
Jeez. Yeah, that's a long time.
yeah, yeah. And so being up in the woods, from what I can gather, from what I've been told, is that the house sat vacant. The closest family to the owner lived 3 hours away, 3 hour drive away,
Mm.
and so they came to check out the property. And at that point, they'd realized that there were broken windows and things, and raccoons had gotten in, and a number of possums and things had started to chew up the house, and so they decided to sell the house before it lost all value. And that's where we wisely or stupidly, however you want to look at that, came in and scooped up the house.
Right.
But so at that point, we needed a new roof. We put on a new roof, complete electrical system, brand new plumbing system, and luckily we have a boiler system. So the old radiators are still intact and functioning. The boiler is fairly new, or newer, I should say. So
Mm.
we didn't have to do anything there, but the other systems we replaced completely. So, and a new roof, and then cosmetic from there, if you
Okay.
could argue that. So
Well, you mean like the possum chew marks and things like that?
yes, yes, possum chew marks, raccoon,
Mhm.
squirrels. Yeah, there was.
You know what's funny about that, Jake, is that I feel like other architect friends that I've talked to, we all have this idea of adopting, or a lot of us have this idea of adopting a house. Like, this house needs me. Like, you see this house that has been inhabited by wildlife and broken windows, and maybe the porch is falling in or whatever it is. And
Mm-hmm.
then I don't know, it kind of tugs on my heartstrings. I think like I can help this house. And also, nobody else is going to want it, so I should be able to get it. My offer should be accepted. So anyway, I don't know. I'm a sucker for a dilapidated house, I guess.
I think we all are. I
Yeah, I
think
think
it's
we are.
I think it's part of, I don't know if it's the inherent nature in making things better that architects have, or if it's just, history. I don't, or a combination of everything. I don't know what it is, but
I don't either. But
yeah.
anyway, that's the way we are. Okay, so
Yep.
then so what have you learned from this whole experience?
So we've done this renovation really as a family. My wife and kids, we've got 3 kids, and they have all been involved in demolition, reconstruction, um, and we've all learned things as we go. But it's been, as a family, we're tearing out walls and rebuilding walls and painting, and so it's not necessarily a let's hire a contractor and let them, put it back together the way we'd like. It's a family. It's our house, and we're all putting in the sweat equity, so to speak. And I
Mm,
think I think it's I think it's really helped us, not only grow closer together, but realize that working with our hands can be, beneficial for everybody, more than just the product that comes from working with our hands.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
How old are
so
how old are your kids now?
So 3 of them. The oldest is 19, the youngest is 9 at the
Mm,
moment. Um, so
okay,
yeah,
so they're old enough to help in a meaningful
exactly,
way. Yeah.
exactly. When we first bought it, demo day was quite fun for he was 4 and 5 at that time, but we kind of had to mark the walls with a hammer, or with a paint, to know which one were coming out, so he wouldn't run around randomly just knocking out walls that didn't need to be knocked out.
Yeah, I can see how that might get out of hand with a
But
kid knocking
yeah,
down walls,
yeah.
but that would be a lot of fun. Okay, so what are your plans for the house, or what are a couple lessons?
So I think a couple lessons are to, be be careful, and I can tell you a story after I say this. Be careful what you're tearing out and getting rid of,
Mm,
um, because there may be some history behind it that you're not aware of. Um, Now, obviously, there's a line between becoming a hoarder, a junk collector, and salvage,
wait, is
but
there? I don't know.
But having said all of that, is on the back half of our house, is a crawl space. One of the obvious additions, is a crawl space, and in that crawl space, we had, I would estimate, we probably had a completely covered. The crawl space was completely covered with broken glass bottles, jars, something
Mm,
probably about an inch, 2 inches thick of just glass
wow.
everywhere. There was a lot of it.
Why?
And I could not figure it out. For the life of me, I could not figure it out. I thought, for whatever reason, the old original person, the old man, had a drinking problem, and he hid the bottles from his wife in the crawl space. That's
Mhm.
what I thought.
Right. But
That's the only
it was
only reasonable story I could come up with.
was it all broken though, you said?
It was.
So someone
It,
just threw it in there? Did he shoot them? Because I had the guy who owned my house used to shoot bottles in the crawl space.
that's a good question. I don't know that.
Hmm.
Actually, I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah.
Um,
Guess it was a hobby back in the day.
It must have been. It
Right.
must have been. But that's where I say hesitate throwing stuff out, because that glass, we had to clean it out based on the inspection, and put down vapor barrier, because of the crawl space. And so we cleaned it out and just threw the glass away, not knowing, thinking if there's any sort of history involved with it. But, fast forward a number of years, a neighbor down the street mentioned to me that, and he bought his house in a similar situation, albeit 20 years prior to us. And and he said he went to the town, the historical society, and found some old maps. And he said the interesting part on the map is that your house was labeled as a speakeasy. Um,
What?
and I
Wow.
said, really? That's fascinating. So I think, and I don't know for sure, I think that all that glass
Hmm.
was from the speakeasy. I
Well,
think
yeah.
that's,
That
I,
seems like that could be the case, right? I mean, and the guy could have had a drinking problem, but it seems like there was some drinking going on at that
right,
place. Wow.
right. And so now I wish that I'd at least searched through that glass to see what was there, what kind of history
Mm.
um, was there. Obviously you can't find a lot in broken glass, broken bottles, but it kind of pieces the story together a little bit more in my mind.
Mm. Wow, that's something. That's kind of
So
a fun little tidbit of history.
yes, yes, I think it's interesting. My kids find it fascinating because, in all honesty, none of us drink. My wife and I don't drink at all, and so they said it's kind of ironic that a house where people don't drink was a speakeasy. And so,
Yep.
but
No, that's funny.
so yeah, so that's part of it. The other thing, kind of stemming off that salvage possibility or mindset, so to speak, is our pantry that I've completely rebuilt. It's a good sized walk-in pantry. A lot of the boards on the pantry used to make the shelving were pulled from the old bathroom,
Hmm.
which initially I walked in, it looked as if it was tongue and groove pine walls, floor to ceiling tongue and groove pine is what I thought.
Hmm.
A very dark and dingy bathroom. So we've completely renovated, gutted that, and renovated it. But as I was taking down the paneling, I realized that it was tongue and groove cherry, 3/4 inch cherry,
Wow.
and I don't know why you would put that in a bathroom, but that's a question for a different day. Um, and so what we did is salvage that cherry, albeit very selective because of being in a bathroom,
Hmm.
um, and cleaned it up, sanded, restained, and used that to use kind of as the highlights in our pantry.
Hmm.
And on the shelving and in the kitchen, we've got a nice wood backsplash in a part of our kitchen that we've done that is the cherry, and it kind of speaks to that story of what the house was.
Yeah.
You know, even though that bathroom was obviously not original to the house,
Hmm.
was done at a later date, but that's part of the history of the house. Is
Yeah. Well, that's great. I'm glad you reused that.
so and it's been fun. It's very cost effective too. I'll say that.
That's true. It does save money, but it does keep the spirit of the house, like you say. So,
Yeah, yeah. The other lessons that I get or stories, I guess you could stem from or take it from don't be in too big of a hurry. I
hmm.
guess I guess there's a fine line to walk there, right? Between let's get it done and move in versus making short-sighted decisions. Um, and so, some of the things that we did initially to get in we've gone back and redone those. Just cosmetic things that we've redone because it just doesn't work for the way we thought we would live and then the way we live.
Mm.
Um, Lighting is a big factor, has been a big, light fixtures and things. We go in thinking, okay, we'll use the room in this manner, and then we realize, we're never going to use the room like that. It'll be completely different. And so we've had to move and adjust lighting and electrical around just to accommodate how we use it now.
Mm.
And so not being in such a hurry kind of caused us that extra effort, I guess you could call it.
Yeah. So, can you give an example of how you thought you'd be using it versus how you do use it?
So as we go up, it's a two-story house, and as we go up the stairs, at the top of the stairs, we call it a landing, but it's got a little bit of a sitting area, a good sized window upstairs. It's a typical, half story in an older home, the sloped ceilings that start about 5 feet high on the outside wall and go up. So there's a little bit of a landing. We thought we would never really use that space much and put in just two light fixtures up there. And just over the weekend, as I was just this past weekend, in all honesty, I was working there and realized this is very dark. Even with the two light fixtures, it's very dark for what we want to do up there. That's planned to be kind of the homework nook for the kids, kind of a lounge type space that's a little private because it's upstairs away from the public areas. But so I had to over the weekend I added in four different light fixtures, additional light fixtures,
Hmm.
just to make sure that the lighting was where we um, wanted it, and where we needed it, where we'd use it. And so, situations like that, that's been a big one. The
Yeah.
other, the other thing I can I can say is understanding, with that in mind, I guess, is that inside at our stairs, actually, there was a door that went up to the stairs going upstairs. And we thought, oh, that makes sense. Separate the public and the private, downstairs and upstairs,
Hmm.
keep the door there. Um, and so we went through all this effort to keep the door intact, and had started, finishing around the door, redoing trim and fixing the door up. And then over, I forget how long, but that door is now out because it was in the way. We realized that this just does not work.
Mm.
The way we live, the way we thought we would live, and then the way we actually live didn't work. So we pulled the door out, and it's now so much more functional, so much better of a space, of a transition area between the two rooms because that door is not there.
Mm.
We would have never thought that moving in, but it's only after the fact that we learned that.
Yeah. So you would recommend that people live in their house for a while if they can before they do major changes?
I say that with a little hesitation, but yes, I
Yeah.
would.
Well, I know. I mean, we're always impatient to do something, right? But
Yeah. Yeah.
and for me, if I don't do it right away or when I feel like the time is right, then it could be 12 years later
Right.
and it's
Right.
still not done too. So there's
Still.
that side of things. But
Yeah.
has your experience owning this house changed you as an architect, would you say?
I think it has. In all honesty, I think it has because and especially since we're doing a lot of the work ourselves. And so I think it's given me a hands-on approach that's not necessarily taught in school, and that you don't get the chance to practice on a daily basis as an architect. A lot of times we unfortunately end up sitting behind a desk and computer drawing and designing, which is great. That's what we've gone to school to do. But at the same time, having hands-on knowledge, I think, is something that a lot of architects either lack or just don't have as much experience as would be helpful.
Mhm.
And so it's given me a great perspective in the, helping people out doing the same type of a project, same type of a renovation or addition or whatever it may be.
Do you have any final thoughts for people?
I guess my big thought, and I'm thinking to my pantry with the stuff that we have done, the cherry that we've recycled and repurposed, is almost a make it yours type of idea. Even if you can take inspiration, we've all looked at Pinterest or online for this is what I like, this is
Yeah,
what I want.
right.
And you can never recreate that, right? It's an image that looks beautiful, it looks great, but you can never 100% recreate it. And so kind of make your space yours using that as an inspiration. Make it yours. I guess it's kind of a perfect meld of that inspiration photo and then the function of how you will use the space, the room, and kind of blending it, and it becomes unique to you, and and at the same time, it's beautiful. I think if as you blend those two, and it becomes it like you said, it becomes an extension of yourself. Your
Mm.
house does.
Yeah, I mean,
So
it's not something that everybody gets to do, is, like, change a house to be theirs. A lot of people just live in houses without doing renovations, or they can't. They're already perfect. They buy them and they're not perfect, but they buy them and they're already
right.
done, or they don't think to do it, or they just let somebody else decide what to do. Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, I think it's a I think it's a great blessing. In all honesty, it's something that not everybody has a chance to do, and you know, not everybody wants that chance either. But
Yeah, well, that's true.
it's a great opportunity that it's great learning experience, and in our situation is a great chance to grow as a family, really.
Mm.
And so, to me, that's worth more than the house itself. But it kind of makes that house. In reality, it makes that house a home. And as we've grown closer together through work and still continuing to do it, we've become closer, and it's our home. It's our haven, really.
So how can people get in touch with you or see more of your work? Are you on Instagram, Facebook, your
So
website?
we are on Instagram. We are on Facebook. I'm not as active on Facebook as Instagram, and even then, not as active as I should be. But
Well,
um,
I mean, who decides how active you should be on Instagram?
um, but you can find us at Haven Architecture is our company name. Haven Architecture, based out of East Aurora, New York. And so we've got our website, havenarchitecture.com, and then you can find us on Instagram and Facebook. And
Same name.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Well, it's great. How'd you get that name, Haven?
It's kind of what I just stated, is that your home is your haven. It's your respite from the craziness of the world,
Mm.
right? You go to work every day, and some days you feel like you're a punching bag and everybody's working against you, and you should be able to come home and take a deep breath and get away from all of that. It's
Mm.
your haven, whether that's in the middle of nowhere or in the middle of the city. It's still your haven.
Well,
And
that's perfect. I wish that were the name of my architecture firm. That's a great idea, Jake. Thank you so much for coming on, and I'm hoping that you'll send me some photos of the trees and of your house, and then I can
I
put them
will.
in the episode enhancements for people.
Yeah, I will do that. And it's been great. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me.
Well, it's
So,
been fun. It's been fun. You
yeah.
you obviously love your house. So,
Well, thank you. We do. We do. So,
thanks for listening. I hope you subscribe to this podcast. If you don't, please head over to wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe. And if you have time to write a review, that would be so helpful. Please contact me for any reason at thehousemaven@talkinghomerenovations.com. I love to hear from people. You could also join my Facebook group, which is Talking Home Renovations Together. And I'm on there with a bunch of people who have also been on the show, have been guests on the show, and other architects and homeowners and contractors. And so we can just talk about whatever issues people might have right there in the Facebook group. If you're on Clubhouse, come join me, 10 a.m. Eastern, Saturday mornings. There is so much information on my website, which is talkinghomerenovations.com. Head over there for transcripts, episode enhancements, other information. You want to be a guest? That's where you'll find that information in the application. This podcast is a member of Gable Media, which is the largest AEC network on the planet. Check out the other content on the network at gablemedia.com. That's GABLMEDIA.com. This podcast is a production of my architecture firm, Demios Architects, where we believe architects are for everyone. Until next time, take care.